Thank you for tuning in to TalkWad.com, the world's fastest growing internet radio network. Please check out all the other great shows on www.talkwad.com.
Watch myself fall down hard. My father tells me that there's no God. I'ma find her if I look real hard. So say I find me if I look real hard now. Into places where waters flow. Down the stream is where some go. When they forget what they should know. Yes, it hurts when your roots grow. Pick me up from the bottom. Tell me what to say. I lost my voice in the river, darling, just yesterday. Pick me up from the bottom. Tell me what to say. I lost my voice in the river, darling. Watch me float away. The only one to stay true to is you. I wondered what you'd tell me to do.
Hi there, and welcome to Right at Five. I'm your host, Mona Lisa, and my guest today is Imani Wumera. Hi.
Hey.
I'm so excited.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, Mona.
Imani is just, she's a phenom. I mean, seriously, this woman is incredibly talented. And we're totally not going to have enough time today to talk about all the great stuff she's doing. So we're going to have her definitely come back. This is like always a part one, part two with this show. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I was born in Hawaii, in Oahu, and I moved to Kenya when I was 11 years old. My mother stayed in Hawaii, my father stayed in Kenya, so I used to travel back and forth. And I'm kind of like a third culture kid,
Yeah.
So I feel like a citizen of the world as opposed to just like having one place that I'm from, and I think that is really kind of the foundation of my work as a poet and a singer, songwriter.
Definitely. I mean, it shows in everything you do. So what was Kenya like?
Kenya was Kenya's an absolutely beautiful country. I mean, it's amazing to grow up in Kenya. There's so much freedom, there's so much space, there's so many different kinds of people and foods and smells and culture. It's such a mixture of so many different things. And so growing up in Kenya was really like created a fabric of diversity, for me. And I absolutely feel so blessed to grow up in Kenya, amazing country.
Yeah, I'm trying to get over there at some point. It's on my bucket list because that's where my people are from.
Right.
So I want to make that journey.
Mhm.
So as everybody knows, this is a show about writing. When I first met you, has it been a year already?
I think it's been about a year. I've been in Florida for about a year now,
Yeah.
so.
Imani kind of just appeared, and we were introduced, and I heard her work, and I was completely blown away. And I had an open mic at the time and asked her if she would come and perform and her poetry. And she did, and blew everybody away. I mean, it was like, whoa, what is this? Where did she come from? This is amazing. Not just your work, but the way you deliver it as well. There's a lot of passion in your work. And so I know me and a few other people were like, oh, we got to step up our game because, like, this is like, we need to reach a higher level because it was something fresh and new and exciting. And whenever new poets come into the area, it's always like we all kind of just flock and go, okay, what are you bringing to the table? And Imani brought the buffet. So, yeah, I said, oh, I want to do it like her when I grow up. So, but yeah, your poetry, your writing is amazing. And I know you're transitioning into music and lyrics. And of course, it's a smooth transition for you because you already write lyrics. That's what poetry is.
Right.
Um, so talk to me about your poetry.
Well, my poetry is like one of those things that I've always considered them to be like pearls. The title of my second book, it's actually a chapbook, but my second book is entitled Pearls, and it has an album with it. And I really started to think about my work as like these short little gems, of in their own right, and just kind of thinking of them as pearls. And like I'm from this, I'm an island girl, I'm an ocean girl, so they bloom, out of that,
Right.
right? And the the concept is I don't like poetry that is very long. I'm not a fan of really overdone stuff. I think that less is more most of the time. And so I always try to write, when I write my poetry, I try to condense, into something short,
Right.
into something, where people can still stay focused and still find it interesting and then still salivate for more, maybe.
Right.
So that's kind of how I am with my poetry.
And I will say that that formula works very well, because Imani had a gathering on Friday night. It was a house party, and we went there to support her in an endeavor that we will discuss in a little bit. And it was, like kicking back on the couches, drinking wine. It was just, it was so
It was zen.
awesome.
Yeah.
It was totally. And, just listening to you perform your poetry, and my friend, Julie, met you for the first time. And she's been, going off about it ever since. Oh my God, she's so amazing. And, and she's like, the thing that really got her about your poetry was, as she was listening to you, she just felt this impulse to close her eyes and get lost in the words.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, that's what I aspire to accomplish, because, at this point I've written all my angry poetry. I'm over it. I'm done.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't really angry poetry. It was more like, hey, this is going on. It's not cool. But
Right.
now I'm kind of like in that mode where I want to create that sensation in the
Mhm.
listener.
Right.
Your wordplay is just, I listen to it, and the internal rhyme and the metaphors, and it's compact, it's condensed like you want it to be. And there's so much in there that you have to feel it when you hear it.
Right.
And that's what, from the very start, the first time I heard you, I was like, oh my God, I feel her poetry. That's phenomenal to me.
Yeah, I really think one of the things that has guided me in my poetry is to really write about what I really feel, what really resonates with me, and not to force things. I think what a lot of poets do is they hear a sound and they see something, especially in slam or in
Right.
poetry, in like open mics and stuff. It's like they listen to other poets and they think, well, this is how I'm supposed to sound.
Right.
And it takes time to evolve into checking in with yourself and being like, but this is how I really sound.
Right.
And I don't need to write any poetry that's going to impress anyone. I mean, my story is enough to,
Right.
Everyone has their story. And so if everyone tells their story and what they really feel inside, there's always going to be someone that can connect or relate to it. So it's important to know your audience, and also not be, not write from it. Let me impress.
Right.
Let me get scores. Let me impress. What can I say that's going to really wow them,
Right.
As opposed to just really coming from that genuine place within yourself that's like, you can tell, heart, soul when you hear it,
Definitely. Definitely.
and truth. And it's interesting because someone said to me after my show, and then they got my album, and they went home and just listened to the whole thing in one setting.
So Julie did.
and he actually wrote to me and he says, it's like your work is sacred. It's like you write prayers. Your work is spiritual.
Right.
And it's like I think of my work, especially my last album, Talking Story, I really think of it as a friend. I think of it as someone that's, as this entity that's like with you. You're in your car, you're driving, you're listening. It's like you have a friend with you, It's not party music. You're not going to put it on when
Right.
everyone's around and you're trying to get everyone going. No, it's like a deeper, it's almost like meditation. It's almost like a
Right.
meditation.
It is a connection. I mean, I have very few CDs in my car anymore, and I have yours. I have Alicia. I have Venus Jones because it's soothing to me when I'm driving, and it's also very motivating for me, and I feel very inspired. I had to start driving around with a cassette recorder because I'd hear something and go, oh,
Yeah.
idea. What is your writing process? I mean, do you have a ritual? Do you just write off the cuff? Do you?
Yeah, I write off the cuff. I sometimes I look back at my work and I'm like, who wrote this stuff? Like, how did I write that? Where did that come from? And a lot of times it will just come out in one setting. I don't do a whole lot of editing and revising. I mean, as I've become more of a critical writer, I do that.
Right.
But in the beginning, I really just wrote, just channeled. It's like channeling some energy, divine. And I just write and stay true to myself and write. And there were times in my earlier work where I wasn't really staying true to myself.
Right.
And maybe I was kind of staying true to myself, but I was like, this is what it's supposed to sound like. So
Right.
there was a little bit of that conflict going on in my own writing. But now, it's different now because I'm starting to write songs. So the transition into poetry, spoken word, which is, free verse,
Right.
to writing, with choruses and really like channeling the build up, because cadence in poetry is natural for me. It's a very, it's very natural. But in singing and songwriting, it's like sometimes it's the real challenge I experience is like getting that build up, that musical build
Right.
up, and that, and doing the same kind of thing, because songs and poems are pretty much the same. They just, use musical instrument or no.
Right.
So, I really, I think that if I was really disciplined, what I would be doing, and for the disciplined listeners out there, it's great to just write every day at a certain time, and be disciplined about it. But for me, it's like I'll go very, very long periods without writing, very, very long, and then I'll write a lot, and then I'll go a really long time without writing.
I think that's a poet thing. Because when I was writing my novel, I was dedicated to working on it every day because it was a continuing story. And I write my poetry the same way. It's like an idea or a sentence or something will pop in, and I will sit down and write it in full. If I can't walk away
Right.
and then go back to it because I won't have any of those same emotions or ideas going through me. I've done it a couple times because I had something specific I was doing. But overall, it's like 2:00 in the morning, wake up and go, oh, and I have to get up
Yeah.
and do it, because if I don't, it's going to be gone. Even if I write down a general idea of what it was, now, when I get up in the morning, no, it's definitely gone. And poetry, I don't know, poetry from way back in the beginning, the way we communicate through poetry, it's there's a lot of passion in it.
Definitely.
And I see a lot of the young poets that are coming on the scene now, because I was here 6-7 years ago when Alicia and Reggie, and they were all like, everybody aspired to be like them. And I always tell the story when I first met Alicia Harris, who's like incredible. She went up before me. It was my first time ever performing, and I had to follow her, and I was devastated. I'm like, oh my God, I suck. There's no way I can do this. And I went up and I did my poem, and I was shaking and I was nervous, and and I walked away, and she was sitting there, and I walked by and I was like, I'm never doing this again because I will never be as good as you are. And she stopped me and she said, don't stop. You'll find your voice.
Yeah.
And those words stuck with me, and I did stay with it, and performed a lot more and wrote a lot more poetry. When you got up there and did your thing, it was a whole different reaction for me. It was like, I have that kind of poetry inside of me, and I can't express it in my mind. I can't express it the way I heard you express it. I'm like, I'm used to going out there and going, rah, this sucks, and women's rights, and and that's fine, because that's the soapbox I'm always going to be on, because I believe in it, and it is from the heart. But I'm in a transition in my life now where I want to write about love and passion and the ocean and seashells and
Well, it sounds, that sounds corny, like the ocean and
but oh my
seashells. But
God.
I mean, for me, it's really where I'm from, and it's really what I feel. And the other thing is that words really create reality in so many ways. And so I feel like if I'm writing about these beautiful things, then my life is beautiful, and it should be like that. And I haven't been through I've been through some hard stuff. I just choose not to focus on that and make my life about that.
Right.
I've been through some tragedies and, the death of my son's father and, I mean, a lot of really intense, moving away, not really having, I pretty much raised myself in a lot of ways. And as much as my father, was working very hard and everything, but it was very complicated for me growing up as a child with, from a very broken home. And so I just choose not to focus on those things.
Right.
I don't go there because that's not what I'm always reaching for, the sun,
Right.
And so that's just, that's how I choose to live my life. And I think that that we can all make those choices. We make those choices every day.
Right.
And I also feel that the biggest form of activism is actually just by how you live your life.
Right.
And so when we say so many things like this, and this, and so many poets are up there like da 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 da, I think everything's relative, and I just think that it's kind of a waste of energy if you just be yourself, and live your
Right.
example, and speak up in those appropriate times. There
Right.
is times to speak up for sure, and you can also write. I actually brought a poem today that I wrote for my second album. And I've never performed it, and I'd like to
I
read it
would
today
love
because
to,
I
definitely.
feel like you, you'd be surprised of this kind of style coming from me because you've probably never heard this side of Imani. But there's so many sides to me that.
Oh yeah.
So shall I perform one?
Absolutely.
So this is called Losing Game. I see men losing good women every day, but it's never often enough since women have a tendency to put up with far too much of the stuff that drains our souls, spending sleepless nights attempting to piece back broken heart pieces and maintain control on roller coasters of uncertainty. Self-security changes by the hour, flipping back and forth between sweetness and insanity, ego and vanity, infinite life and mortality, safety and tragedy, and men. Playing games of darts with our hearts, then kissing our wounds away. With sweet words promising to never again do what they did yesterday, never hit again, never chew and spit again, never realizing that skin and flesh heal quicker and more complete than spirit wounds. Emotional abuse can be more difficult and painful to detox than kidney rocks and cancers. Lyrical bullet wounds penetrate faster, maintain in parts of the brain and fester into insecurities, manifesting as self-doubt and self-hatred, self-abuse and spiritual annihilation, and like crack addictions, women keep going back, perhaps thinking that she can change him. Every day, I see these women go back to these no-good men, selling themselves short for no good reason other than, but oh, I love him, but what's love got to do with it? When you become so accustomed to the abuse, it's unnatural to live without it. So accustomed to the abuse, it feels unnatural to live without it. So secure in the doubt that you have forgotten what self-love feels like. Been drinking dirty water for so long you've forgotten what the fresh stuff tastes like. And let's not even mention all the poison you've been breathing. The reason for all the hiccups and the sneezing, the cause of a weakness so strong it will keep you as long as you allow it to. Girl, I know you are not going to leave him until you are ready to, but I challenge you to question how much lower you are willing to go, how much more you are willing to abuse your own soul, remain emotionally out of control, allow your growth to be stunted, allow him to smoke up your heart like a blunt and cry. I know it is going to be hard and it's going to hurt, but today is always a good day to kiss him and your self-hatred goodbye.
Oh my God, I have chills.
So that's like, that's stuff that, I probably have never performed that out loud, but it's in my, it's in my book. It's one of the things that is there, it's something that I've maybe experienced and witnessed and seen, and I let that, be what it is.
So I have to say that I've heard probably most of what Imani has done up to this point. I'm like, an Imani groupie. There's a set of us out there that are like, oh, okay, right, Julie's now one. She totally listened to it all the way home. And the thing, hearing something like that from you is jarring to me, because your poetry is about all the beautiful things and the love and the passion and the island life. And I lived in Hawaii for 4 years. So, and it's like, oh, when I'm rich, so to hear something like that from you just further shows the multidimensional artist that you are. And even with that subject, it still comes down to love.
Exactly. Totally.
And, self-love, love of another, having been in a situation like that and having gone back for all the weirdest reasons in the world, you get to that breaking point and you're like, okay, that's it. I gotta go. It's life or death. And basically that's when it gets to that, when it's life or death.
Yeah.
And sadly, sometimes it ends in death. But to hear that, for me, to hear that as a survivor of that, it's like, I get it. And the self-love is the redeeming, saving grace in all of that.
Yeah.
So you're putting a message out there that's very necessary, and you're doing it still in a way that's not like in your face.
Right. I don't like the in your face. Actually, and I find myself when I hear in your face poetry, I'm so turned off by it, because it's actually it's like telling a child, not to do something. And what's a child going to do? Go and do it just because you told the child not to.
Right.
Because we define our own boundaries. It's one thing to enlighten people, to make people aware of
Right.
issues that may exist that they're not aware of, but people are aware of a lot. Well, maybe, people are aware of a lot less than we actually think they are. So I understand how some people really need to, some people maybe need it in their face, but there's a way to get to people emotionally, and to tap into them emotionally where they find that it's their idea. And that's where the real empowerment comes from,
Right.
is when it's from the self. So a lot of my work, I try to, I go more to the subtle side, so that, because in my real personality in life is I can be a bit, opinionated. So I'll say, oh, this is that, or this black or white, or, I might say it. But in my poetry, it's like, so my alter ego is like the super, sensual, gentle, natural, she's not this big beast, because
Right.
a lot of times in real life I could maybe be the big beast. So my poetry is that other side of me that is just it. I love it when, true education happens when one educates himself,
I agree. I totally agree. And transitions and changes and reinventing oneself. As artists, we go through transitions. I look at poetry I wrote in my first book, and I look at the book I just finished,
Mhm.
and it's like I see all the transitions that happen and how I've become a stronger person and loving myself and caring more about, humanity and the issues that are out there. And I know when I first started writing poetry about domestic violence and rape culture and things like that, that I was very in your face and I was angry about these things because I lived them. And now that I feel I've healed and I'm happy and I love life and everything is so beautiful to me now. The last poem I wrote that I did at 1 Billion Rising was from a different place. It was like, I'm going to educate you about something,
Mhm.
and I'm going to do it in a way that makes you relate to it.
Mhm.
Somebody in some way, shape, or form, or everybody in some way, shape, or form is going to relate to this. And though I was very passionate when I performed it, I wasn't angry. And that
Mhm.
a lot of people said that to me. It came across, they're like, wow, the subject matter was like, bam, in your chest. But the way you presented it, it was just like, it kind of made you sit back and go,
Yeah.
okay. And when I think for a poet, when that kind of transition happens, for a writer, for a human being,
Mhm.
when that kind of transition happens, it's like, okay, you're to the next level.
Yeah, you're going to create a different reality for yourself.
Yes, absolutely.
Your future story is not yet written, so you have the power to write it. And that's the thing. Now you're more in a gentle, loving place. And then as you write more about that, as you become more about that, it develops and flowers in every aspect of your life.
Definitely.
Poetry has that, and someone told me a long, long time ago when I was first getting into poetry, in 2000, so I had I swore one time in one of the poems, and he was like, I really don't think you should swear in your poetry because it's not. He just told me that, and it
Right.
resonated with me, and I just don't swear in my poetry.
Right.
And I want people, a child to be able to to listen to my poems, and anyone, and be able to find themselves somewhere in it,
Right.
So I don't swear I at all in my poetry.
Right. And that's again that there are so many different levels of poetry from the basement to the penthouse.
Yeah.
And I went through that phase where like I put a lot of swear words in my poetry because it was where I was at and I was angry and I had issues that I thought I had to bring across that way. This last poem that I wrote is actually, considering the subject matter, there's no swear words in it. And people, they're like, well, that was really kind of different. And I said, well, yeah, I'm in a different place.
Yeah.
And I find that some people are really unnerved and uncomfortable when a poet grows and becomes someone else and their writing changes. And that saddens me because I know poets out there that are just, they're so emulating someone else or something they think they're supposed to be, and it's like, oh, your words are so amazing.
Yeah.
If you just embrace them and be yourself with them, as opposed to thinking you have to be this or that or whatever. And there are a few poets out there that really, like Dennis. I don't think you've met Dennis yet. Dennis Lemmerman. He's young, up and coming, and he is just, when you listen to him, it takes your breath away.
Mm-hmm.
Because, we have a lot. He's mixed like I am. He grew up in Germany. He has a German mother, black father. So we have all these things in common. And when he does his poetry, he's like, oh, I totally get it. I relate. And it's refreshing to me to be around someone that presents themselves that way.
And we're constantly evolving. Anyone who's not evolving is staying in the same place. And then, just let them stay.
Yeah.
That's what, to be an artist, you have to be constantly evolving. Otherwise, I don't think you can call yourself an artist.
I agree. You have to be fluid.
It's people are not going to want the same you all the time forever. It's going to get boring. They don't want to hear the same poems every single time they see you. They don't want to hear the same songs every time you go to a concert. You want to know that this artist has something new. There's a new sound. There's some new energy. This is like, we have so much potential and possibility and power to create within us. Why would we want to just stay the same? And I embrace change in others. And, and it's interesting, like when I first started getting into poetry, because I grew up in Africa. So, I grew up in a very multicultural society and, majorly dominantly Black culture,
right?
African culture. And so, and then when I moved to the U.S. to go to college, it was like I fit in with a lot of more Black people, and I had always felt like I was kind of, my son is mixed, and so I had always kind of like felt like I really resonated with the Black struggle.
Right.
And in 2000, when I started to get into poetry, I felt like I somehow had to prove that I was, minority enough to do poetry, because that's kind of where the culture was at that time. Like, it needed to sound a certain way. And that's why what I'm talking about when I say that, poets hear other people and they think they have to prove, and especially white poets, like they have to prove they're Black enough, or they have to prove that they're, they're down. You know what I mean? Like they feel the struggle, and it's like it annoys me thoroughly now, because I went through it. I outgrew that. I look back and I'm like, that was not, I wish that I had a mentor at the time that was, really able to open my eyes to what poetry really is,
Right.
And I found myself in a position where I was mentoring others when I still kind of needed mentoring myself.
Right.
And so it really helped me grow so much as a writer and as a performer, and I've started a nonprofit organization for spoken word, and really like just creating opportunity and possibility through poetry.
Right.
And so, and the other thing about poetry too, and I think poets get all kind of like, you know, um, they get a little bit defensive, or if you don't like their work, it's like, hey, I don't have to like every poem. You don't have to like every poem that I wrote. You know what I
Right.
mean? It doesn't have to resonate with you. And it doesn't mean that I don't like you if I don't like your poetry.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like sometimes we have to separate ourselves
Yeah.
too from our work. I mean, I am not my poems.
Right.
They do not define me. I'm so much more than those you know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. Yeah.
So
And
it's
it
keeping things in perspective is really important.
it is. And ego, there's a lot of ego out there. And, at one point for me, I kind of hit that rock bottom, and I consider it rock bottom for me as an artist when I started to write for other people. And I started to write for an audience, and I started to write for open mics, and I was like, oh, okay, well, I need to do this, and
Right.
I need to write that, and that's who I am supposed to be, and I was really down on myself because I couldn't memorize my poetry, because I was more into writing books than I was writing 2 poems and memorizing them.
Right.
I've written 7 poetry books. I'm not going to memorize all my poetry. So and it wasn't anything anyone said to me, but I had that feeling when I went up there and I was reading my poetry. It's like, I'll never be as good as these people are because I'm reading my poetry. Well, I'm reading out of a book I wrote. I'm not going to downplay that anymore.
No.
I've gotten past the point of going, I'm not good enough or as good as everyone else out there because I have to read my stuff.
But what does that even mean? I mean, it's like, it doesn't even mean anything.
It doesn't.
It doesn't mean anything. It's a different approach to, a similar craft. But that's the thing about spoken word. That's the thing about slam culture. I've never really resonated in that
Right.
zone. And to be honest, competitive stuff. I mean, I don't know. I think in a lot of ways competition is very primitive. I think that when we really come to love ourselves and love other people,
Right.
we when you come from that place, it's hard to be competitive. I mean, it is. And especially poetry, I can't vibe with that.
I don't understand. I mean, and a lot of the people I know are into it, and I'm like, you know what? If it works for you, that's cool. I support what you're doing. But I'm old school when it comes to poetry. I used to read,
Yeah.
Robert Frost and Emily Dickinson
Rumi.
and Rumi. I mean,
Yeah. Walt
that's
Whitman.
those
go.
are my roots
Yeah.
in poetry. And to me, poetry was always and going, even further back when during slavery, that's how the slaves communicated with each other about children that were born and deaths that happened.
Well, Africans. I mean, the oral tradition of Africa.
Yeah,
I mean, that is
without
innate in the
that,
blood.
we wouldn't have the history that we have today. A lot of that was, that's how they communicated, and that's how they told the next generation and the next generation and the next generation. And I think when you come from a place like that as a poet, you're kind of on a different wavelength. I mean,
It's a
I see
wavelength
Nikki
thing.
Giovanni when she performs poetry. She reads her poetry.
Oh,
And
yeah.
it's Nikki Giovanni. Are you going to
Yeah.
tell her she's less than because she's reading out of one of her 14 books? I mean, the competitive, the ego, the
Comparison.
and love me, and I'm going to write so that you do love me. And I was in it. I
But
was
you
in
love
that
my
whole
ego, not me.
right. I
You
was
love
in that
who I'm
mindset.
trying to, yeah. So it's an evolution, and that's why cheers for the evolution.
Yeah.
Because in the time that we've both been writing poetry, I'm sure we've both evolved, so much. I listened to my first album, and I'm like, there's some stuff on there that I'm really proud of that was
Right.
really great, but I'm so glad to be out of this place where I feel like I have to write for anybody other than myself.
And that's, oh my God. Okay, for those of you out there that are listening, writing for yourself is better than sex. It's so freaking liberating because after you write it and you read it and you go, that's me.
I actually have a poem that I would love to perform. It's probably one of the longer poems I've ever written.
Well,
Can you?
what time? We're looking at 5. Do you want to do a song and then do the poem?
Sure.
Because
We can do a
I
song.
want to promote this CD. Why don't you talk about the CD?
Oh, well, this is my last album. It's called Talking Story. And it's got 12 tracks on it, and it's a fusion of world music and spoken word poetry with some vocals. It was produced in Kenya and in Ibiza, Spain, with this amazing French Brazilian producer percussionist. His name was David Villefort. And yeah, so this album's great. You can get it at my website, and you can get it on iTunes.
And the website is imaniwoomera.com. IMANIWOOMERA.com. And I have a link on Right at Five, my Facebook page, that has to the website. I went on there today. Kick-ass website, by the way. Which song do you want him to play?
Let's do Camel Milk and Honey. This is a fusion with a guy I used to collaborate with in Kenya named Pepe Hayes, one of my students actually, and
Okay.
he's doing some beatbox in it, and it's all just vocals. There's no instruments in it at all.
All right, cool.
One, two, three.
If I worked a little harder, I could do it. If I tried a little harder, I could have it. If I looked a little deeper, I could see it. If I was a little patient, it would come, fly, baby, fly. To the land of camel milk and honey. Oh, you can fly, baby, fly. To the land of credit checks and money. If I closed my eyes, I could go there. If I flapped my wings, I could fly there. If I held my breath, I could breathe there. If I was a little patient, it would come, fly, baby, fly. To the land of camel milk and honey. Oh, you can fly, baby, fly. To the land of credit checks and money. I know I need to work a little harder on this. Dreams don't come true just cause I made a wish. I got to put my heart and soul right into this. If I'm a fly, oh, if I'm a fly, 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 if I'm a fly.
Wow. That's awesome.
That's fun.
We're both sitting here like totally
Jamming out.
getting into, yeah.
I love that stuff.
So I want to make sure that we get all your information out before we run out of time. So I gave you guys the website. Tell us about the Austin thing.
Okay, so I am going to South by Southwest, the music festival and conference in Austin, Texas. I'm gonna fly out of here for 2 weeks and go and be a part of the whole thing. And I'm gonna be. I was invited to perform at one of the interactive parties, so that's gonna be great. One of the official parties. So it's a huge opportunity for me. I'm really excited. And I'm also going to be interviewing some pretty amazing people doing what you're doing. I used to be a radio presenter for 3 years, so I'm actually going to be, interviewing and switching seats with you, asking people questions. And
who's one of the people you're interviewing?
Well, rumor has it I'm going to be able to talk a little bit with maybe Shaquille O'Neal. So let's see.
Definitely. Are you still doing a fundraiser to...
No.
You're good?
I'm good. If someone wants to, support purchase one of the albums off my website, you can get them, right on my website. I have all 3 of them there. The first one is Morning Rain, 2006 release, a 2008 or 9 release, Pearls, and then my new one, Talking Story. So I just go to the website, click on albums. You can listen to some of it, and I promise you, Talking Story it will not disappoint.
I will attest to that, definitely. And as always, I'm a huge proponent of supporting your local artists because if we don't support each other, well, let me just throw that little angry thing out there real quick. Our government and those entities that be out there definitely don't support the arts anymore. They support war. So we have to watch out for each other and help each other. And, definitely like put the armor down, people. And, that the petty backbiting and I had David the Day was a guest on my show, which I definitely have to have you guys meet because it would be an amazing connection. But he and I were talking about this as well. Like he's a musician and he's self-taught, and he just they got voted Best of the Bay cover band last year, and the backbiting started, and there's room for everybody out there.
Oh, yeah.
And it's when we don't support each other and we start to tear each other down because of ego or whatever that it really kind of sullies things and makes them kind of ugly. And that's not what it's about.
Definitely.
That's, I don't know what happened to me. Maybe it's because I'm in love.
No. But, the other thing is that people have to also understand that, while a lot of people are choosing to, work in corporate America or, like their 9-to-5 jobs or maybe don't like them at all and are working them anyway, and thinking, they and wanting people to perform for free, that whole like, oh, let me, get a copy of your album or let me, get into your show for free. It's like the whole time you were choosing to do other things with your life and your career, I was choosing to write and work on my talent and my craft, which is work.
Yeah.
And so this is what I choose, and I choose to perform for you now. So it's people have to respect and understand that art is work, and that life without art is so boring. Why would you be working anyway? Why would you go to work every day for life with no art in it? It just wouldn't happen.
It would be useless.
You would not want to live. You'd be like, there's no music and no art. I'm out of here.
Yeah, I mean, it's bad enough being.
We're like the therapists.
Yes.
We're like therapy.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? It costs like $10 for my album online. That's like therapy. Buy that album before you contact a therapist.
Yeah, because that's, they're going to tell you how to fix you and they don't know anything about you. Yeah, so definitely share the poem.
I wanted to do this poem because this is called I Remember, and I feel like this is an amazing writing exercise for everyone out there, to really remember, who we are and where we come from or what we're doing or remember something. So this is a poem I'm going to share with you now. It's called I Remember. I remember before there were cell phones, email, and cyberspace, and I thought that the whole wide world was the Hawaiian Islands. I remember age 4, when I thought that airplanes could land on clouds and the feeling of my insides crashing and burning when I learned there's no protection between the earth and the sky. I remember age 6, when Kanaloa, god of the ocean, scooped me up into the washing machine-like motion of his wave and I nearly drowned, and that would only be the first time my father saved me from his power. I remember my lunchbox on the first day of school in grade 3, Kihei Elementary. Mama put sweet surprises inside along with an I love you note so that I would not forget. I remember the sounds of slippers dragging upon concrete sidewalk, brown boys with low-cut surf shorts and permanent tan lines like tattoos upon skin. I remember age 9, when I had 2 authentic silver toe rings on the same toe and my girlfriend begging to borrow one for just one day, and she never did give it back, and though I have forgiven her, I still have not forgotten about that. I remember spending a great deal of my younger years trying to make up ways to hang out with my older brother and his friends. I tried so hard to fit in with them, but they were usually up to no good. I remember feeling blessed when I got to get a giant Slurpee from 7-Eleven on a hot Hawaiian day, walking with my bare feet to the beach, sipping blue ice, laughing carefree easy. I remember when Mario Brothers was all there was to play, and Mom would say, turn it all the way down. And now with a son of my own, I understand. I remember when Mama said one day I would understand. I remember age 10, taking a boat from Maui to Lanai, and the dolphins followed us the whole way, playing, splashing, inspiring speed. I remember when I thought that lihi moi, spam musubi, and dried cuttlefish were the very best things that money could buy. I remember when I tried to pretend I could French braid my auntie's hair. She would just kick back and humor me, but who would have knew I would be the bomb at it one day? I remember Mama's Saturday morning occasional hangovers and the $5 she would give us for a McDonald's meal. It was the only time we were ever allowed to eat that stuff, and to our young perverted taste buds, it was absolute bliss. I remember age 4, Trina Perkins, big, thick Samoan chick, harassing me at every opportunity. I was usually very afraid those days, and when I look back, I think she must have been the universe preparing me for the real thing. I remember writing poetry before I knew what it was even called. I used to write every note and every night and hide my journals in secret spaces and then say little prayers to my fairy gods that no one would ever find them, but, someone always did. I remember being in puppy love with my brother's best friend. Can't really remember his name now, but I told him I would pay him $5 to walk down the street with me and hold my hand so all my friends on the block could see. I remember hula dance class and days I just did not want to go, stomping my feet in protest as Mama dragged me up the steps, forcing me to learn to tell stories with my hands and hips. I remember my life before I gave my heart to a boy, before I poured all my innocent, precious energy into him and would have to one day learn how to love me again. I remember age 13, skipping school with my friends and spending the day on the beach acting like tourists on Hawaiian holiday. I remember when my mother caught me because the school called just as I was in the middle of telling her how much I learned in social studies. I remember angel cards. Mama told me pick 3 every day and place them upon my altar until the next day when I would choose 3 more. I remember Haleakala, Pele, the goddess of Fire's mountain, waking up at 5 a.m. to catch the sunrise, hot cocoa and wool blankets in the back of the car, my brother and I laughing the whole way up. And once we got there, the view so spectacular, we forgot which planet we were on. I remember the silence there. I remember Pele.
Wow. That's awesome. That's awesome.
So everyone can do that, that's just real. It's just like, everyone's life, and you can write that, and you
Yep.
can choose the good stuff. You can choose some of the bad stuff. You can choose whatever you want. And then you have like this photograph. It's like a photograph,
Yeah. A
verbal photograph.
Yeah. The whole, the vision and words. I'm all about like connecting that these days. I see
Yeah.
a picture or I see something and go, oh, I want to write that picture. Or I write something and go, I want to take this picture or paint this or whatever. I don't know. I think all of the arts are so kind of interwoven.
Mm-hmm.
And I know you're teaching yourself the guitar and the ukulele and
Yeah.
and it's isn't it just amazing when you like decide to incorporate something new and you go, yeah, who needs classes?
Yeah, well, you got to be really disciplined and keep working and working, and it takes time and effort and belief in oneself. I think that's always been one of the harder things for me, is really believing in myself and and really, knowing what I really want to do. Really, what do I really want to do that doesn't feel like work. It doesn't feel like it just authentic, that's one of the things in life. Just get to that authentic place where you're living for you. I mean, and people say it all the time. It's such a stereotype, like live for you, do what makes you happy. But people say stuff all the time, but I don't think that we really often tap in deep enough to
Yeah.
figure out what
And I
that
think
means.
we too, we have this issue with being proud of ourselves and believing in ourselves, and right away it's like, oh well, that's pretty vain. No, that's just believing in yourself and
Right.
and putting yourself out there. I mean, we all do it. We have different reasons for doing it, and in the end, when we do touch lives, it's a phenomenal feeling. because it's like, something I said, something I did, something I wrote, something I played, something I painted or sculpted or whatever, it affected a life. And I think
Yeah.
we have so little connection as human beings now because of technology, that when we do have that kind of connection with the arts, it's a revelation, because it's like, I didn't go online for this, and I didn't talk on the phone to somebody. I was face to face with a person, and I get to see their soul
Yeah.
in their work. And that's kind of the level I'm on right now. It's like, I want people to see my soul. I want people to understand that, despite all the hard times we have in life and the things we go through, that there is another side to it,
Yeah.
and listening to your poetry and listening to you Friday night, I just kind of like sat back and cleared my mind, which I can't do very often because it's really jumbled up in there. There's a lot of stuff going on in there. But I said, okay, I'm going to clear my head and I'm going to listen. And when I listened, there were things that touched me, that affected me, that, brought a tear to my eye or smile to my lips. And I was like, this is beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what art does. And I think more so poetry and music, lyrics, more than any other written form out there, to me, touches
Yeah.
people's souls.
Oh yeah, and it self-reflection is also going on in poetry a lot. When in an audience, if you're really, and that's the thing about being a great performer, though, too. There's this thing about, there's so many different aspects of being. For me, I love to perform, so it's like I'm kind of a natural performer, so things really come out of me when I perform that don't come out when I'm by myself writing.
Right.
And so
Yeah.
a lot of times I actually, how I got into starting my own show, having my own shows and throwing my own events and stuff, because I'm creating my own opportunity. I'm not going to wait for somebody to make a show, and then put me on your list. So I really started, if somebody out there wants to start getting something going, work. If you're a performer or a writer, you want to get something going, write and bring some people together and just perform and actually see what comes out. That's the truest practice. It's like the best practice, performing is
I agree.
live shows.
Definitely. And I want to throw it out there real quick. There is an open mic at Ruby's Elixir on first one is Tuesday, March 5th. And Ruby's Elixir is 15 3rd Street North, St. Pete's, right off of Central Avenue.
Awesome venue.
There's no cover.
Awesome.
And it's from 8 to 11, and it's hosted by Pedro El Poeta.
Ooh, we love
we
Pedro.
love Pedro.
Shout out to Pedro.
Yeah, definitely.
He's so cool.
The featured poet is Kali, and the music feature is Trenchfoot Shindig. So if you guys can make it to this open mic, please, please, please do. Again, there is no cover, and that's like, I'm loving that, because we poets,
Awesome.
and people in general, we're trying to make it out there. So to have a free venue I'm really happy that Pedro's doing this.
Very cool.
Definitely. So I want you guys to go on Imani's website, order her CD, share it. Seriously, send people there, buy more than one, send it to family and friends, because it's an experience that's,
Even if you want to burn it. I mean, if you buy one and then you want to burn it and give it to someone else.
Shh, don't say that.
I mean, no, because, it is great to have, it's great to be supported, but it's also, it's also great to have your work out there.
Absolutely.
So if people,
Absolutely.
If you have some friends that, you want to gift them something special, hey.
Do it. And then tell them that they need to buy it for someone else.
Yeah, and if you wanted like a physical copy of the album, you can also order them from my website as well and get a physical copy, and I'll mail it to you autographed or whatever. So
yeah.
All
Awesomeness.
right.
Okay, so we have about 4 or so minutes left. 5. Okay, so if it's okay with you, I would like to play Jupiter's Daughter as we exit out.
If that's your choice.
Because Jupiter's Daughter is the first thing I ever heard Imani do. And when I heard it, I was like, I need to meet this person and connect with this person, because she's going to affect my life. And she has affected my life. She has changed it for the better. And that connection between artists is what it's all about.
Definitely.
So again, it's IMANIWOOMERA.com, Imani Wumera. Listen for her, follow her, and support her. And thank you for listening to Right at 5. And we're going to go out with this song. Have a great rest of the day. Thanks.
Thank you. Jupiter's daughter. I am Jupiter's first daughter, water of sacred fruit, youth of Venus's eye. I was born to dig and grind that inner truth. Root born to the largest seed, feed stars with poetry. Trees grow on Pluto, so flow this. Kiss the earth 3 times fresh, request to grow this. Twist palms, invert to show this. Bliss is not external, turn inside. Slide. Fictitious false realities. Trees planted in depleted soil, toil in search of serenity. Tea for stress-free longevity. Breathe. Deciphering these childhood scars, bars imprison bodies, bodies imprison souls. So death of the physical sets you free. Be not afraid to die, by all means be not afraid to live. Give more than you receive, need nothing, everything in abundance. Dance rumba, cha-cha, samba, cantar, you are alive. I wonder, ponder my past, asking for answers. Cancers of mistake break beats across my chest, regret lingers, quietly numb. Some let go easier than others. Lovers I speak to no more. Pour my heart out onto a page. Rage mixed with laughter. After a cleanse I am light. To write her and me appease. Please thine vote her. Wrote her a book. Looked at myself real good in my skin again. I am of the ocean. My waves range from sexual to intellectual, and if not surfed right then they tend to break upon shores and more intensity follows. Waves crash with force, then they swallow sands that will be pearls tomorrow, and of them I lay strings long enough to adorn you with. Draped like protection from those who use their eyes to scorn you with. And if you ever travel and feel alone, they make hotel rooms sweet and safe as mama's home, and like a woman's love, they will comfort you. Know your truth before you speak it, and if you ever lose your voice, they will speak for you. They know exactly what to say in exactly the right way, and like a mermaid, they will sing to you. Bring the secrets of the sea to wherever you may be, and though I am almost a stranger, they will reveal to you my mysteries. So if you ever wonder who I am, wrap these words within your hand.